something a little different today. We're going to be talking about my 86 S10. All the do's and don'ts of building one. So here we go. So before we get too far, a couple things to know is when I started building this truck, it was the first time I really messed with anything ground up. Everything I worked on was just, high school truck. I had a truck in 6th grade and put new fenders and stuff like that on it, and then I ended up getting rid of that, which I still regret to this day, but you live and learn. And this truck I got from one of my old high school buddies, and it wasn't running at the time, so I had got it and messed a little bit, got it running, and it was a 2.8 liter, had the 5-speed 4-wheel drive. He spray painted it flat black, and I was going to redo it in the winter, and one thing after another, and next thing I know, I'm tearing this thing apart and we're doing a full-blown build. So what you're going to see is a little bit of what to do, what not to do from my point, and hopefully this saves some of you guys some problems down the road. So let's get into this. All right, so first things first. This is a front end out of a 72 International Scout. It's a Dana 30 factory 410 gear. The front was originally drum brake, and I've converted that. I used a set of 10-bolt Dana 44 outers and GM 10-bolt caliper, and you buy the IH Scout disc and hub assembly, and it will fit right on there. What I did was I just made some mounts I welded to this frame. If I would have known at the time that there's a group on Facebook dedicated to it, I would have bought the Skies kit that everybody talks about, and you can use I think it's the 2.5 inch or 2 1/4. I can't remember what the size is. Leaf spring, because these are very flexible and they move a lot. So when you're driving it down the road, it can be sketchy. I've had it change lanes. It is not fun. So the only thing I did was I cut the cross member out of it, and I made just my own cross member, a drop cross member under the steering arm to help stabilize it because it was twisted at one time. I put the 1-ton upgrade in. If you do the 1-ton upgrade, you need to make sure your back spacing on your wheel is enough to clear the tie rod. The tie rods on mine, I took a grinder and I just flattened them a little bit, not a lot, because I already had my wheels, my tires, everything. The steering was one of the last things I did. If you run a bigger wheel, say like a 20, it'll probably clear no problem, but keep that in mind. The other thing I got is the Astrovan steering box. This one points out to the front, and that is so you can move your axle 3 inches. I didn't know that at the time, so everything I was following, I did it that way. If I would have kept the Dana 30 outer off the Scout, it has an extra spot for the steering arm. I could have hooked into there, but mine is at an angle, which I get a little bit of bump steer, but not a lot. But it still gives me a little bit. The other thing I did on this truck was I made my own motor mounts. I bought the V8 swap headers and the V8 swap motor mount kit, and my motor sat so far in the air in the front Like, it was like angled back. I did not like it. So I took a couple pieces of flat stock and welded them in the angle, welded them onto the frame so that I could drop my motor down way farther than it used to be. So that was one of the things I did. So right now it's got a 406 in it. I also flipped the Dana 30 on the Scout is on the bottom. I flipped mine to the top. And on the Scouts, it is a casted mount. So I ground mine down to put my leaf spring bolt through it. It's worked. I check them about every other drive that I do because I don't drive it much, mainly because I have a lot of problems, but seems to stay tight. And then for my shocks, I just made a couple mounts well under the frame, and for my shocks, for my shock tower. The other thing I did to the front was to get the angle right. I cut these and turned them. They work so far. I took it to line up shop. It was lined up, so I haven't got to test it since I got the new motor in, so I'm pretty excited. So as far as the back, I used the IH Scout mount, and then I made a couple pieces of just supports, I guess you call them, to mount to the frame. I didn't want to do too much because I didn't know where the exhaust was going to go, but I had plenty of room. So that would have been a nice thing to upgrade in the future. In the future, I'd like to 4-link it, and I think it'd be a lot better. So one of the other things I did was I kind of made my own panhard bar. Just made a mount and piece of DOM tubing, and then I just welded on top of the pig, and that helped out significantly. It doesn't sway as bad as it used to. One of the things I don't like on this engine is because of where I put the mounts, the mechanical fuel pump, I had to run that street L right there because you cannot clock that fuel pump to make it fit anywhere else without going electric. So that's one eyesore that I deal with. So one of the things on this truck was, I said the motor mounts. Yeah, I moved those motor mounts, but I also put a body lift in this truck. So these are S10 swap headers. These are the bigger tube by Hedman Hustlers. And because of that, I had to put in a 3-knuckle steering gear, or steering shaft, sorry, to make this work the way I wanted it to. So that's kind of what I got there. As far as the radiator, this is just a Corvette radiator, 3-row. I had to put a shroud on it. It ran really hot for a long time. So I got that. I'm running a electric water pump on it right now, just because I want to race it and would like to be able to cool it down if I do take it out racing. Here's another side view of the radiator. It's a little tight on the inlet water pump down there. Still working on that, but it does the job. I did relocate the battery. Gonna move the air filter. Want to put a cold air filter on it, and I want to be able to mount that in the inner fender over here somewhere. Got the MSD box over here. Alright, so the rear end's a Dana 44 out of the same Scout. The only thing I did to this one was I did an axle flip on it. This is the original rear S10 springs. I need to do the shocks. The shocks are actually a 2-inch drop spring, because when you do the axle flip, you flip the leaf springs in the bracket over, so your spring's actually higher than what it should be. Mine is at a pretty good angle, so I wanna end up moving those someday when I get to it. I built some bump stops just out of some plate, nothing fancy. Got a UHMW block on the bottom, so if it hits hard. And then off that mount, I just put my brake line for the rear. It used to be up here, which I haven't removed yet, and I just moved it down here. I did put a couple bars on here because we all know the S10s like to bunny hop significantly. So that was just a cheap set, just a couple 1/2-inch plates welded to the frame and adjustable. So the tranny is a turbo 350 and running a 208 transfer case. The cross member mount is actually out of a K20 Chevrolet, and then I just made some mounts to make that work. And then I could use my factory, or the factory cross member mount here. Drive shafts are out of the K20 as well. This drive shaft, all I had to do was I cut the splines off just a little bit just to clear on the yoke, and no problem with that so far. On the rear, I bought some lift shackles, some heavy duty ones, and I'm only running on the 2-inch lift, and that was because the truck sat a little bit too high in the front and I wanted to even it out a little bit. And the truck was rotted out real bad on the frame, so I bought some 10 gauge sheet metal, and I went ahead and cut the frame out, drilled it out, put a piece of pipe, bought new bushings, put new bushings in it. There's new bushings all the way around, but that's what I did for that. As far as the rear bumper, I just took some 1/2-inch flat stock and got it level, and then bolted to the new bumper, and then I just went ahead and welded those to the frame so I could still pull the bumper off. And then of course got a fuel cell in here, fuel filter. Used to have exhaust on it, but I took it off. Want to redo it, just don't like it. So it's just a 20-gallon fuel cell I bought off eBay. Bought a rollover vent for it. If you buy one, buy the turn-on caps, not the quick on and off ones, because they get stuck. These are way better. And then I did cage mine. Just cut them out, a little big, no big deal to me. Relocated the battery to the back to make more room. I was trying to get a little bit of weight off. So this truck is only caged to the floor on the cab. The only spot that touches the frame is in the bed. Got a quick disconnect steering wheel on there. Just helps me get in and out because of the cage. So if I could do this truck again, the first thing I'd do is I'd buy a Sky's straight axle kit, or I'd buy a complete 4-link kit. Second thing I would do is I'd buy Super Duty axles for it, like the 03. They're all over, and they're gonna do whatever you want it to do. I don't plan on doing any rock crawling or anything with this, so for what I'm using, they'd be perfect. The other thing I would do is I'd change the steering. I think I could get away with using high steer kit on it, and the bump steer would be a lot better than what it is right now. The other thing I'd do is on the motor mounts, how I built that, I would buy the kit that has, it's just kind of a tube that you weld to the frame, and it's got some flanges, and you weld those flanges wherever you want, and you can put your motor mounts on them, so that when you pull the motor, you just pull those 3 bolts out each side and you pull your motor out. That'd be pretty much the major things that really have thrown me for a loop. Like I say, I didn't know a lot when I started doing this, and the SAS build for S10s on Facebook, they got a lot of helpful information, and I mean, you got questions, people answer them, so I really like that. I don't ask a lot of questions, and I don't post my stuff on there, but a lot of people do, and they're all going through the same things that I am. So I think that's about it. So if anybody's got any questions on their stuff about what I've done or what I would recommend, feel free to ask. So thanks for watching. Really appreciate it.